Alright, boys. Finally back to make another video after my hiatus. Today I've had a topic that's been on my mind for a while, and this is going to be about delusion and the costs that being delusional has. And you're probably wondering why I have this screenshot up on the screen right now for those of you who see this. And this is a case. In this video, we're going to be talking about a few things, but the screenshot is about this delusional guy posted by a guy called Randy Stair. And some of you boyos may know who he is, others may not. There's a lot of of those sort of independent crime channels that did some videos on him. But I think he's a perfect example of the price of being delusional, and he's going to be one of the sort of introducing topics I'll be doing for today's video. And I'll just do a little brief rundown on him and then get on from there. So Randy Stair was this sort of weird, kind of cringy YouTuber who became obsessed with this cartoon called the Danny Phantom, and he thought somehow he had some underlying mental issues, which would explain why he thought this way. But he somehow thought that if he offed himself, he would somehow reincarnate as a female character from Danny Phantom. I know this is a very strange story, but again, with delusional people, they don't make sense. And what happened is, for those of you who don't know, he went ER and he killed a few people and then he offed himself. And it just sort of was kind of reminded me of the cost of being delusional. And I'm not going to accuse delusional people of having those types of ideations, or that delusional people are going to cause mass shootings or terror, but it just made me think. Because this guy came under some delusion that he was going to have some better life as some ghost character from a completely fictional, non sentient reality. And I can't even say reality because it's simply that, a fiction, figment, delusion. And I'm not going to spend the entire video talking about him, but again, when you think about characters like this, he died for nothing. He was hoping he'd get a bunch of fame and that everyone would care about him, but the only people that sort of worship him are a few edgy 14-year-old girls online who will probably forget about him after a month. And this is just one example that I'll be using. But what happens with delusional people is reality will eventually catch up. Because, as some would say, reality is a very generous, it's a very brutal collector, I mean. And delusion is a very, very generous lender. It will lend you a lot of delusion and a lot of cope. And over time, reality is going to come and they're going to ask for that money back. They're going to ask for you to pay in reality bucks, and if you don't got that reality cash, oh, you're in for it. And with delusional people, they either come to this realization when they go over the edge, or they come to on their own senses. And the former is, I guess, more of the worst ending because they come to this realization at their finality before they go over the edge because of the delusions they ascribe to, and they pay for it with their life. For those who make the realization, the ones who are lucky enough to make the realization, they are spared a lot of brutality, but it does lead to a type of crisis, and you have a sort of crisis that comes from that because you've spent years, months, decades having delusional plans and thoughts and hopes for life that aren't going to occur. And lost time can never be refound again. And I think that's kind of the brutality of being delusional. Because being delusional for a day or two, it's one thing. But if you're delusional for months, years, decades, maybe the rest of your life, you lose out on a lot. And it is something that is not particularly enviable at all. And I think that it's a very tragic thing to be delusional for your entire life, to have delusional goals and delusional objectives, or to just get kind of caught up in maladaptive thoughts or things of that nature. And it's a very brutal thing. And delusion can kind of bleed into some other things that people may not think about. One example I'll use is, people who get caught up in video games, and I don't say this like in the shaming sense. This isn't me hating on people for playing video games. You should play them, but video games should be a form of entertainment. Same with films and television programs, and for those of you who read comic books, these should be entertainment, not escapism. And the problem with kind of using video games or pop culture as a sort of escape from reality, or to try and make like a maladaptive alternate timeline where you're some sort of badass, like Call of Duty badass, Max Payne type character, is you end up just spending your days kind of wasting away having these sort of daydreams like, oh man, I wish I lived on this timeline. Or it doesn't even have to be things like adventurous first person shooter type shit, but you could think, oh man, I could be the Giga Chad Slayer and get all those girls. And I think that with video games and popular culture and entertainment like that, you should make sure that as I iterated prior, that it's a form of entertainment and not escapism. Because I don't think in 25 years' time you're going to be sitting there going like, "Oh man, I'm so glad I spent the last 25 years of my life coping and thinking that I was going to live on some sort of fantasy timeline and stuff." And maybe for some people this might go over a few people's heads, but I'm not saying that you can't play video games. I'm not saying that you shouldn't, but make sure that they are, as I said, and as I've iterated multiple times, that it's a form of entertainment. It's just something to make the time move along for a few hours, and that you go on with your day. Because there's no good in using it as escapism or to try and drown out the sorrows of reality, because everyone has to get back to the real world sooner than later. And, that's on the more virtual front. There's some other virtual things I'll talk about, but I'll kind of put a break in virtual delusion and virtual over fantasization over things. And I'll go a little bit onto the relationship stuff. And, like with beta buxers, or in this example, I'll use the Steve Cell incident. So, you had Gay Bear and his Steve Cell, Buzz Lightyear looking boyfriend that he's with. And when I look at Steve Cell, and I'm sure the boys that know me on Discord are like, "Oh God, he's going on about it again." But I am gonna go on about it. But when I saw this Steve Cell character that Gay Bear got with, I look at myself and I look at this guy and I think to myself, how is that winning? The only reason that Gay Bear put that as his profile picture was some sort of delusional, notice my word there, delusional attempt at trying to flex on people. Like, ha, you inkies, I got a GF and you didn't. And, I mean, a BF, well, maybe it is. Maybe it was a she, or maybe it identifies as a. Whatever. That aside, it's just when I look at something like that, I know that someone cannot enjoy a relationship like that. Maybe it's because I'm heterosexually coded, as probably greater than 95% of my viewers watching this channel are. But for those of you who've seen the Steve Cell, you can't tell me with a straight face that a non-delusional person dumpster dives with that thing. There is nothing enviable about being with a Steve Cell. It is a very delusional, unsatisfying type of life to live. And for us straight cells, it's the beta bucks. You're like a 3 out of 10, and you're like sipping for some 2 out of, not even a 2 out of 10. I'm not even going to shame guys for dating 1 point below their SMV. It's not a huge injustice, but imagine you're like some oofy doofy, and you're with some like just beast, some whale, and you are forced with that. It's sort of a delusional thing because you're trying to convince yourself that it's better than being single, or that you're somehow more superior to the rest of us sub fives because you have a wife who doesn't even give you the yearly blowjob. But excuse me, back to the topic of virtual stuff. I wanted to get into this kind of weird cope that goes around because this is another delusional thing, and later on in not in this video, but in a future video sometime down the line, I'll talk about this more in depth. But I want to talk about AI girlfriends and why I think you shouldn't get involved with them. AI girlfriends aren't real. You're spending your days having not even conversations with a real person, or a real woman in this case. You're having a conversation with a computer program. And it's one reason that when I play video games and stuff, or when I'm online fulfilling virtual entertainment, whether it's video games or television programs or films or porn, I don't, how put it, go for these dating simulators or for these like AI dating simulators because imagine spending years out of your life trying to convince yourself that the conversation you're having with an AI quote unquote GF, or if you're a part of the gay bear community, a BF, is somehow real. There's nothing really satisfying or rewarding about it because she's not real and you're not going to get any sort of material gain from that because she can't come by your house. You can't go to her house. And I mean, you can't really use it as a flex either. Like, oh, bro, I got a GF. Oh, really? What's this GF? She's an AI. Oh, okay, so you're just a coper. And I know a few people have talked about and are saying, oh, bro, these will become common. Guys are just gonna have AI girlfriends. I don't believe this for a second. I'm sure there will be a segment of men out there that will go this route. I don't doubt that at all. But I'm very skeptical as this being some sort of widespread, like 60%, 80%, 90% of men. It's never going to be that high. Even among a lot of sub fives, I'm sure there will be in this community. I'm sure there will be a significant portion of men that go for it. But I even question if a majority of men, even in this community, would go for it. If the AIGF cope is something you're into as a sub five, I don't know. Leave your thoughts in the comments. Would you do it? Would you not? But it kind of reminds me of another YouTuber who was a bit delusional. I mean, I don't really have that much against him because he does make good points at times, but it reminds me of this conversation that TFM had about his sex doll being real and that the love between his waifu, his AI waifu, and him was more real than between a real man and a real woman. And I'm not going to shame people who use sex dolls, like, I get it. Maybe you can't afford to do it, maybe it's illegal, maybe you can't whore max for other reasons, and you can't get a GF. If you want to use a sex doll to release that urge, by all means. But don't try and convince yourself or try and convince me or anyone with a triple digit IQ that you have something more real or more organic or simply put, just something real. Because it's not real. You're just, simply put it, to put it quite vulgarly, you're just coming into silicon. That's really all you're doing. But I'm going to end off this video with some pieces of advice for people who might be delusional. And this can just be general advice for people that might be on that path. And that is have material reality goals. And by that I mean have things you want to do in the material world. Because doing things in the material world is more rewarding than in the virtual world. Because yeah, you can play video games and yes, they can be fun and you can have memorable moments, but it's not a material thing that you can take with you. It's not a material thing that you can look back on in 10 years' time and be like, man, that was so rewarding. And I'm not saying that, oh, you have to put yourself out there and be Alexander or Macedonia. But just do some simple things IRL, whatever that might be. Some IRL things that you might find interesting. Maybe going, sometimes even just doing something as simple as doing a night walk. Those can be a bit more rewarding than just sort of sitting at home coping with your AI girlfriend. Because it's something real. It's something that you can have, and it's a real memory that you can have 10 years down the line that can't be taken from you. And that said, to finish off fully, I'm not saying you can't play video games or have virtual entertainment or watch porn or stuff. By all means, do that. But make sure that you regulate it, partition it down, make sure you have some real life things that you need to do or want to do. Again, it doesn't have to be anything special. It can be something very simple. If it's something special, then by all means. But also have your virtual fun, but keep it regulated. Okay, boys, I think that's all I have to say for today. Like, comment, and share. I'm out. Later.